In this video, I'll show you how to make snow and ice bases. Hey everyone, and welcome to my first YouTube video in which I thought I'd show you how to make snow and ice bases. So for this guide I'm using a 40mm base, but obviously this process will work on any base size that you choose. And the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to make the ice rocks. And for that I use a clear crackle paint, Distress Crackle Clear Rock Candy from Ranger. And we're going to use it in a slightly unusual way and do a deep pour. So you're going to need to get yourself a piece of foil and you're going to make a small container bowl out of it. Just fold it up, making sure that there's no room for it to leak. Luckily the paint itself is very thick, so the bowl won't need to be completely waterproof. It just needs to have no gaps. Using foil for this actually has a couple of advantages. The first one being that the set crackle paint doesn't stick to it too much, so it's quite easy to push out when it's set. And the other one is the uneven texture that the foil gives actually adds to the rock effect. Okay, so with your bowl made, it's just a case of pouring the paint straight into the mould. Now, as I said before, it's actually really thick, so just take your time and gently pour in. Yeah, that should do. So as you can see, it's a very thick glue-like looking consistency. Just check there's no leaks happening anywhere around. It's not really easy to see on the camera, but I've poured in about 1 centimetre in there, and that's all there is to it. So just put it to one side in a warm and dry place for 2 to 3 days. Next, what we want to do is work on the base itself. Because we're working with snow, I find that the best thing to do is to start with a white base coat to everything, just in case you can see anything through the snow or the clear ice itself. So simply get yourself some white spray. I'm going to use CITADEL's Corax white spray for this, and spray the whole base white. The crackle paint is now completely set, and as you can see from some I've done before, this is the sort of pieces that you'll get as a result. So just take your set mould and over a bowl, slowly stretch the foil out, and you'll find that the pieces just crack away. Just gently give that a rub just to make sure that they all come away. You'll find that you'll get lots of different size pieces which you can choose to use individually or glue together to make larger rock formations. So let's put those to one side and let's go back and get our base. All I've done for ease of handling is stuck that with some blue tack onto a cork. And we're ready to start assembling the base. The first step I always do when making bases is to add some texture to the flat surface of the base itself. And to do that I just use some cheap wall filler, or SPACKLE I believe it's called in the US. There's no particular technique, just get a reasonable amount and start to smooth it onto your base. I tend to just work from the middle to the edges, pressing and smoothing until I get a texture that I'm happy with. For the edges, you can just use a finger just to smooth and clean those up to keep them nice sharp edges. Okay, so I think something like that. With the filler still wet, we're going to just take some ice rocks. I'm just going to pick out 2, maybe 3 larger pieces. Maybe just this one, and maybe just this one here. And let's say that one. And you just take your rock and place that into the wet filler or spackle. Press it in, and you'll find that it's strong enough to hold it, and once it sets, it'll be very strong to hold it. Just place that one there, I think. Okay. Maybe put this one just next to that one. Just put that in there. Okay. I think maybe get a smaller rock to fill in that gap. Just put that one in there. Maybe one on the other side, just to fill in the other gap. It's worth mentioning that if you do want to make larger rock outcrops, you can super glue these pieces together and make bigger rock formations that way. Just press that into there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right, I think maybe add one last one just onto the side of that bigger rock. Maybe this piece. Yeah, okay. Just add that into there. Like that. Okay. Now just put that to one side and let that set. With our filler now fully dry, just give it a quick check to make sure none of the pieces are loose. If you find any of them are, then just super glue them back into place. Next, we're going to tint our ice rocks with some Calth Blue Clear from CITADEL and thin that down with some water. Just going to get a small pot to mix that in. Then take our blue, give it a good shake. And the ratio we're going to use is we're going to have 1 drop of the Calth Blue and I'm going to mix that with 5 drops of tap water. Okay, so let's just give that a mix. Should find that's nice and blue. And then simply paint that onto our rocks. You can apply this quite liberally all over all of the rocks and just let the wash settle into all the recesses and the cracks as you go. Once you've covered all of your rocks, you'll need to leave this to dry for around 30 minutes, maybe more because we have watered it down quite a lot. Make sure that it is fully dry before you progress to the next stage though. With the wash now fully dry, we're ready to move on to our next step, which is going to be dry brushing the rocks with some CITADEL White Scar. As always, give your paint a shake and then take your brush and load up some paint. Just load up a fair amount. Then taking your tissue, you want to just rub your brush into the tissue taking off most of the paint so that it's just a tiny amount left in those bristles. Quick test on the back of the hand to make sure it's just a small amount, and then simply flick the brush across the surface lightly of the rocks so that the paint is actually just catching the very edges. Continue to do this all the way around on all of the rocks. With the dry brushing complete, we're ready to move on to the fun part, which is making the snow. For this, we're going to need some SCENIC snowflakes from Deluxe Materials, and we're going to mix that together with some PVA glue. So take a small pot and pour a small amount of PVA glue into the bottom, maybe a little bit more than that, like that. And then take your snowflakes and pour an amount into the PVA glue. I find it's best to add a small amount first and continue to add more as I need to. And taking a small cocktail stick, let's just mix that together. And as you'll see, it starts to form a paste. Keep mixing the dry snowflakes into the glue. Okay, so I think we'll add a little bit more snowflake. Like that. And as before, just keep mixing it in. I think I'll add just one last bit of snowflakes and just mix that together. Just keep mixing it around until you get a consistency something like that. That's what we're after, so it's like a fluffy snow consistency. So then we just take our snow mix and start to spread that onto the base. I find using a cocktail stick perfect for this because the small point means you can use it to push the snow up into all the little cracks between the rocks. As with the filler, just work your way around, moving the material, pressing it down, pushing it into the cracks where you want it. The cool thing about this snow mixture is it's actually surprisingly sculptable, which means if you wanted to, you could press footprints into the surface or sculpt drag marks, tyre marks, tracks, etc. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. So there's one final step we need to do whilst it's still wet. I'm just going to put it on some foil to catch any excess. And I'm just going to go and grab some of the dry snowflake and then sprinkle that onto the top. Tip off the excess and repeat the step a few more times, just to ensure it's fully covered the wet surface of the snow. And then leave that to dry overnight. With the base now fully dry, simply brush away any excess snow from the surface and paint in the rim the colour of your choice. In this case, I opted for Abaddon Black from CITADEL. And that's it, the base is complete. I really hope you found this video useful, and I'm very sorry for the mistakes in focus and noise quality, etc. I promise I'll work on that. In the meantime, if you'd like to follow more of my work, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. And if you'd like any more of these videos, please remember to follow, like, subscribe and share. Thank you.